So we've got breaking news. Trump is panicking on both the EU and Mexico. What's going on? Well, these are the headlines from CNBC. Trump announces 30% tariffs on EU and Mexico. So if you're worried that you were not invited to the party that everyone else is getting invited to, well, here's your invitation. It's in the mail. Trump says to U.S. to impose 30% tariffs on EU, Mexico next month. And I'm showing you guys multiple headlines because everyone's picking it up. You know, Reuters, CNBC, Bloomberg, etc. But this one was a bit strange because I checked the official White House account and there's no mention of it there. And I feel like that Trump may be doing this on his own because there was also a delay between when agencies are reporting it because I think people are like, what's going on? Is this for real? And this is how it is. I tried to check Trump's account and it was unavailable there. So I'm not quite sure what's going on, to be further frank. There is a letter floating around social media. I have it right here. So I'm just telling you guys, all major news agencies are reporting it now. The letter to Europe's, to EU says, Her Excellency Ursula von der Leyen, President of the European Commission in Brussels, dear Madam President, okay? And you can read the whole thing if you like. It's pretty same as what we've seen before. You also got this one, Her Excellency Dr. Claudia Sheinbaum Pardo, President of the United Mexican States, Mexico City, dear Madam President. And if you've been following this, you'll know this. Trump basically promised 90 deals in 90 days. All those people are out bragging that they were going to work at Trump speed. But what these letters signify is essentially the negotiations are over. They give up, and we're just going to do a blanket, 30% tariff or whatever, which is a horrible way to do trade. I want to make that really clear. This is a horrible way to do stuff. You basically ruin the work of everyone on your trade team because all the reporting that I've been seeing, be it from the EU and the trade reps there, or be it from India and the trade reps there, or be it from Vietnam and the trade reps there, because we've been covering all of this stuff. They've actually been working hard to get something, some sort of framework going, right? And Trump will then just that's why I mentioned that it's not even on the White House account yet. Trump seems to be just doing this stuff unilateral. On top of that, if you understand the complex negotiations of this stuff, which I'll read through in a second here, you'll understand why just doing blanket stuff in like a unilateral way is not a great way to do and handle relationships with other countries. For example, this is what it says. The people cautioned that the negotiations and any potential deal could be upended by Trump. So this was in the Bloomberg that was reported, like what's going on with the US EU. So basically, like everyone knows that no matter what the teams work on, Trump could just, tweet out some nonsense on a whim. So I think that's what we're seeing right now today. That's why I'm saying panicking on both EU and Mexico. He just feels like things are probably going too slow and he wants to declare some sort of victory. Also, it was reported before that the U.S. is collecting a lot of tariff taxes basically from you. And I guess Trump wants more. This is what it is because they're claiming that all this, rate based essentially raising taxes is going to be great for USA. But I think what's going to end up happening is trade is really going to be stifled by this. You're going to have less choices. Prices are going to go up on everything. And people aren't going to like it. So, it's not a great way to deal things. And people on his trade teams are probably ticked off right now. I promise you. The people cautioned that negotiations and any potential deal could be upended by Trump, who has yet to comment publicly on the arrangements under discussion. Okay, great. Well, this is what we got today. This is the public comment today, though. Any deal would rest on what Trump decides. Said the people. The U.S. president has sent letters to some 24 country letters that set tariffs rates unilaterally, right? All alone, uni. The European Commission declined to comment on the status of talks as negotiations are ongoing. There are all sorts of categories, be it the USA wants EU to lower their regulations on food so we can bring in US food. They want them to lower regulations on cars. They want the US wants EU to lower regulations on environment, all kinds of things. I think it's a non-starter myself, but that's what essentially USA wants. They want all these crazy demands that can't be done. Security is also involved with this stuff, like how much are you going to spend, how many weapons are you going to buy from the USA. There's so many stuff to talk about. I'll read through some more so you want to get some details of sort of why Trump just gave up basically and said, I'm writing you a letter. So for example, it says, cars and tariff levels on agriculture have emerged as a key sticking points between European Union and the US, as the two sides work toward a provisional trade agreement in the coming days. Oh, that's a new one. I haven't heard that one. Provisional trade agreement. So before it was concepts of a plan, and then after that you had like a framework. And then after that, I think it was, what was it, like principles of an agreement. So this is another one, provisional trade agreement. I hadn't heard that one before. They come up with all these different ways to like pretend like they have a deal when they don't. It's basically an agreement to keep talking about said things. But yeah, the two sides were working on a provisional trade agreement in the coming days, according to people familiar with the matter. But remember, that's why I mentioned the first thing we looked at, where Trump can just change his mind at any moment. So you can't do business with this guy. The EU is seeking tariff no higher than 10%, okay, on agricultural exports. So EU wanted 10, Trump's saying 30. It's not very good in negotiation, I think. An offset mechanism that some car makers had pushed as a way to grant tariff relief to companies in return for investments in the US isn't under consideration. Okay. For now, amid worries from the EU, it could shift production across the Atlantic. So one of the things that someone mentioned before recently was some companies from the EU maybe reshoring back to the EU. So Trump's plan was like, oh yes, all these countries are totally going to build factories in USA, but it may end up being the opposite actually. And the example that someone in our community mentioned was DHL was essentially moving a lot of jobs back to Europe. But that didn't sound good for the US thing. So let's see what else we got here. The US and EU have been discussing an initial deal that would see EU exports hit with 10% tariff with limited exemptions. Okay, limited exemptions for some industries such as aviation and medical devices. See, guys, it's all over the map. The EU has been arguing for lower rates on spirits and wines, and that's actually been something that's been on the table with China as well. Spirits and wines, for reals. The article also mentioned bourbon. This stuff is actually real money, but it's just always funny when when you understand like how many different product categories there are. As well as mitigating through quotas the 50% tariffs that Trump has imposed on steel and aluminum. The U.S. has proposed 17% tariff on agricultural products. Okay, the agreement would also cover non-tariff barriers, so that would be like buying the weapons from the USA, right? Economic security and strategic purchases. I think Trump was floating that countries need to have 5% of the GDP go to defense, and therefore try to sell more American tanks, fighters, or whatever to other countries. But this is something that's also very real, is the USA is not the only country out there that you can buy weapons from. So, Trump's plans are just basically falling through is the best way to describe it. His plan was essentially, hey, I'll put tariffs on you unless you, build factories in USA and bring jobs. But like other countries are like, why would we? We're just better off waiting till you leave office and then go back to business as usual. Because if they were, just for example, if they were to start building any sort of factory, so then you have to remember that would mean actually, a ton of money invested in USA to where someone could change the rules at any moment, and it's just not worth it. Plus, like financially, maybe the market, in the USA, if they're going, say, through a recession, and you're not sure if the consumers there are going to buy products from said factory, right? It doesn't make sense. Or if the workers aren't trained for what you need, or the worker price comes in too high, and any number of factors, or the infrastructure is not there. Because it's more than just a factory. You need to make sure the whole community in the area is suitable for whatever particular thing that you're buying. For example, we learned recently that Samsung was delaying building, I think they were building a new chip plant or something like that, because the orders weren't coming in, right? And this is also connected to how Trump is handling the economy. So if the economy slows, there's no incentive for any of this stuff. So he's setting up trade barriers, which is bad. We saw this stuff happen with Herbert Hoover, and that caused, one of the causes of the Great Depression. And then you have the further isolation of the USA because of just, bad dealings with Trump, plus the trade barriers. And then you have bad economic policy of Trump, too big of a deficit spending, increase of the national debt. Then you have a bunch of incompetent people in power. I laugh, but it's like, this is just a total recipe for complete disaster. I was actually, from what I had been following the story, I actually thought that they were close to getting something going with the EU and possibly India. And this is how framework. So I want to make it clear, not deal, but at least keep talking. But it looks like Trump is basically shut down all talk and done sending out these crazy letters. So that's what's going on. I want to hear your thoughts. I think this is insane, and I don't think the markets are going to like it, and we'll see how other countries react. Again, we're all just waking up here on a Saturday morning. Please share your thoughts on this one, and I'll catch you all in the next video.